Okay. I will never let these people live this fantasy. They just have reconstructed reality in different fashion. And the truth is, I will never let them live the fantasy. Today, what's happening is they're forcing me to have this sexual stimulation toward children of all ages, especially little girls. But right now, I think what they try to do is like toward little boys now, which is weird because I have a picture with a little boy I have on my shoulder somewhere in my dating apps, right? And so the way they've been trying to reconstruct that is just, it's just finding a way to just try to negate reality. So what they're doing right now is try to find something, twist it around a little bit in a different fashion. And the funny part is actually gonna touch on something that's the opposite of what they were trying to push. What you're seeing here is a movie called Antoine Fisher. It came out like early 2000, right? 2002 or so. I think I saw it in 2003, 2004, around that time. It was like it came out in on one of the like special channels, right? There's like premium channel. And at that point, I'm like mid-teen, right? Around 15, 16, 17, right? Around that age. And I'm watching this on one of the special channels. And I remember watching that. And there was a moment there that made me think of in a sexual way because it was this man, Antoine Fisher, I think. And when he was a kid, there was a woman who was taking advantage of him. But what made me think of her in a sexual way is because the woman. I had something not similar, because I was older. I was a teenager, and I was with somebody who was older than me. That's the truth, and that's the reality. I was very obsessed with this older woman who was about 10 years older than me when I was in my mid-teens, right? And even before, I've always like thought of being with older women. The first time I saw this movie, I think the first time I saw it, this woman made me think of a woman that my friend showed picture of, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish. And I know it's not sensible, but that's the truth. I was like, I wish it was me. I wish I was in the place of this boy. I know that is not sensible, but that's the reality of a teenager. You don't think I was like, oh my gosh, poor kid. You're thinking about, oh my gosh, lucky kid. I wish I was him. I could be with this woman. That's just the thought process of a boy in his teenagehood, right? You envy the boy, even though of course it's definitely bad. You should know. But as a boy, you're thinking about being with a woman, and you're like, oh, you're lucky. This person is lucky. This kid is lucky because I wish I was, and I was a kid myself, and actually ended up being in circumstances of that nature. But of course, I was older. I was a teenager with somebody in their late 20s. I was a mid-teenager. I was underage with somebody older than me, about 10 years. And so for me, when whatever in this movie happened, I was not, of course, it's not sensible. I was not thinking about, oh, poor kid, what happened to. Yes, I was thinking like that in a sense, but also I was thinking, oh my gosh, at the end of the day, this is a movie. This woman is definitely, like I wouldn't mind being with her. Very unsensible, not sensible, but you gotta understand, we're talking about teenagers. Only think about, women or girls, right? Like, sex is just it. And I'm talking about girls their age. They try to flip in something else. So I'm looking at that, I was like, oh, I wish it was me. I wish a woman like, and I'm looking at her, it's like, oh my gosh, she's voluptuous, she's womanly. I was like, oh my gosh. But what they try to do is like, no, you were into the boy. Jesus, the little boy. I was like, ugh. No, I wish I was the little boy, at least at the time, which is me as a child thinking this way, or even me as maybe later on, if I watch it again, I watched it when I was like maybe an older, like young adult, like I was maybe 20 years old, maybe 19 years old. I saw that, I was like, oh man, this woman there is, we gotta understand, this is, you're thinking about the woman regardless of what's happening there. Of course, you're like, oh, that's sad, but at the same time, it's like, man, that woman, because it's a movie. And you think about the woman. But they try to make me think, because what happened is, like, one of the scenes is the kid runs, like wet, running away. And you're like, oh, okay, that's, but you're like thinking about the woman early on. It's like, oh man, I wish this would happen to me. Because you're like, if it was me, like I would handle it. Like, that's how you're thinking. And that turns you on because you're looking at the woman and you're like, oh, if this woman did that to me, I'll be happy. Yes. Now, these perps try to flip it around. It's like, no, see the little boy. And then she were turned on by the little boy with no shirt on. It's like, oh, God, please. They're just flipping it that way. You're turned on by the woman and how the woman was sexual. And making you imagine if it was you. It's like, yeah, if I was me, they do that to me. That's the kind of mind I had as a teenage kid, and also maybe like as a young adult. If I saw that again, matter of fact, if I saw that again at that point, I'm thinking about my experience when this older woman did that to me. When I'm older, I'm like a teenage boy, which I've been obsessed with. That's the reality. Now, what's happening today? They just alter the brain because they want to paint me as a pedophile. When the truth is, actually paints the other way around, because it makes me, I guess, a victim, but I definitely was not a victim. I definitely see that as to me, it's not. I know teenage should not be with adults, but boys, teenage boys. Let's just say that that is a fantasy of a lot of teenage boys to be with older women, and it happened for me. And I was obsessed with that. I don't see myself as a victim. I see myself as just, matter of fact, sometime when I was older, I was like, I should have done this and that and this and that. Because to me, that was something it was unforgettable. And I don't think I was taken advantage of. Because as a teenage boy, you're really in a state of really like interest of sexuality. And I think older women at that point were, something that you would wish was fantasized. So that's the reality. So they try to flip this like, no, but the little boy who ran, I was like, okay. You're just changing that. What turned me on is what this woman did. Like, not what she did, but the way she was sexual. The way she looked. I was like, oh man, do that to me. Completely neglecting the fact that she's doing that to a little boy, which is wrong, completely wrong. But you're not thinking about it as a teenage boy. You think about how this woman looks. So right now they're making noise campaigns. How can you imagine? Can you imagine I'm a teenager? You think I'm gonna be like, hey yo, I'm not gonna look at this woman. It's like I'm not interested in that, into the woman. These clowns are delusional. They live in reality that's falsified, because what they want you to identify is this false reality. And the truth is, what they're trying to negate is because they know that you were with somebody who's way older than you, that you shouldn't have been with. Who perhaps in certain circumstances wants you seen as maybe you were taking advantage. But as a teenage boy, these kind of things, when they happen, older women, teenage boy, it's a little different. It's not the same when girls are with older, but when the teenage boys are with older women, there is like a fantasy of a lot of teenage boy. A lot. And it was for me, it was a moment that. So when I saw that, maybe the second time, I probably thought, oh yeah, that reminds me when this was happening to me. But when I was an older kid, when I was a teenage boy, thinking about, when this woman, 10 years older than me, when I'm 16 years old, was, a little sexual with me. That's the reality. And so when I was seeing this movie, the first time, it made me think of this older woman. When I was like a teenager, I think I was, if I saw in 2004, I was maybe 17 years old, 16 years old, something like that, or maybe 15. I was thinking about the older women, but they try to change it around. It's like, no, what turned you on is this. Like, no, what turned me on is the way this woman was sexual. Imagining that happening to me. And they try to be like, no, but you see, that was with a kid. It's like, I was a kid too when I saw this. And second of all, it was the woman that turned me on, because I had this obsession with older women. Or Obsession of older women doing that to me. I wish I was in the place of that kid. They try to just change it some other ways, or fantasize way. They put together things. I know who I am, and they're just trying to alter it in different ways. I think what I'm gonna show is the scene, because they're trying to negate reality. So what they try to change it. It's like this kid when he was running half naked. That's what turned me on, not this woman over there. At that point, I know it's immature, but as a teenage kid, you see that as like, yo, I want to be with that woman, and I'm interested in that woman. The kid is just, you just wish you were that kid. And the truth is, it actually brings up the reality that something like that, when I'm older, much older, 16, 15, happened to me with a woman who was 10 years older than me. They hate that, but that's the reality. I love to put that in their face. I will never let these people live their fantasy. They are prepping to frame me in different fashion. They say they're gonna implant child porn, children getting raped, things like that, and try to use this as their validation. Matter of fact, there's something that was on Worst Hip Hop that I never saw, that they wish I watched. So they try to implant things of child rape and this and that, or in my computer, in my devices, and use this. You see when this movie come out, right? So let's just say I watched it maybe 3 years later. You understand? Imagine so I'm in my teenagehood. You understand the maturity of that? You're gonna look at a woman, it's like, oh my gosh, that woman, oh my, I wish it would happen to me. This is what they do. It's like, but you feel sexual, yeah, because I saw this woman. It's like, oh my gosh, I wish. In my teenager, so I think it was like, or maybe 15, 16 years old. It's like, yeah, because of the kid. Now this woman was acting sexual. It turned me on. Matter of fact, they've been trying to falsify some other videos or like try to change it, something that I find it funny. Mind you, I'm like a young adult that they try to mess with in the different ways and manipulate the memories. It's like, yeah, it's like, no, this is funny. But this, if I'm 16 years old, 15 years old watching that in 2004 or so, what do you think I'm going to look at this? I'm not going to think like these people have no shame. Because usually they do that for children that are little girls, little babies. Like, now we mapped it to you when you were like in 8th grade and this and that happened, remember? So they try to now create this toward the little boys. The awkward part is like, okay, well, why do I have like this picture? Like, what happened there? It's like, our little boys. They're like, yeah. He's delusional. And you try to paint this false story. So I can just stay strong. I will not let these people live the fantasy. That's why you see the blur picture over there. This is a blur picture of somebody who was older than me. Matter of fact, this person has a scar on her face because she was doing something. Which, to be honest, I'm not looking at it as like, oh my gosh, I'm a victim. Oh no. I was a teenage kid. A few years, like in my later teens, 16, 17. She was 10 years older than me. Definitely not something I think of in a negative way. As I think as a boy, it's different. As a boy, you do fantasize to be with an adult woman. And that's the reality. So for me, target individual, I know I'm not perfect. What I put here is just put the reality, because they try to paint you in different fashion. And I'm not here to say that this is okay, that what happened when I was a teenager with an older woman is right, but that's the truth. But what they're trying to do now is to flip that around, because what's happening today is like they're framing me with a teenage kid, that they want me to act, they want to pretend that I'm doing something with this kid. And then try to paint these things with this nasty, because what's happening today when I see kids, especially little girls, they stimulate me. Little boys, it's a problem, because I've babysat this child from birth, like when this kid was born. There was this kid called Jay. I'm not going to, let's call it Jay. Let's call him Jay. I was with my girlfriend at the time. Her sister-in-law was pregnant. She had Jay. I babysit for that baby for them. I saw him grow up to maybe 3 years old. He was like my little guy. So I think what they try to do is just go and falsify that. So they can't even play with that too much because it makes no sense. So why? What happened there? I think Jay made me want to be a father more than anything because I saw him grow up to be a 3-year-old. I saw how endearing he was. So now what they're doing is they're trying to create that. They try to find a way to put this sexual stimulation toward these boys now because they did that to little girls. And with the little girls, it's like, no, what we did, we mapped it to you when you're in 8th grade. Remember what you did as a kid? We're matching these feelings. And now you're falsifying feelings. And today you're just now trying to do this toward little boys. But the reality is where I'm going to put their face. I will never let this low life live the fantasy. No matter how many videos I make, 1,000 of me, I will continuously do that because I want them to see reality for what they are. As they're framing me with these kids, they try to negate the fact that when I was a teenage kid, I was interacting sexually with a woman. And that's what they try to negate. And this scene made me, if I saw this again, made me think of what happened to me when I was a teenager. And before that, because I saw it before even it was happening or while it was happening with me, with an older woman, it made me think of, oh, that's like she looks like the woman my friend was showing when I was like a 14-year-old, 15-year-old. That he was all over. This is the things that try to change. I have no shame of what has happened in my life. Because they bring up child, like teenagehood and being a kid, and try to use this to try to make me accept of these manipulations and try to say, no, but and then flip is like, no, but that was no. What when I saw this was stimulating me, and they can play now with timeline with things because I know I watched it shortly after it came out, like maybe 2-3 years after this movie came out. So it came out in 2002. I think in 2004 I started watching, or at least 2005. So I've watched this, and it's just trying to change into something else. And that means I'm like 16, 17 years old watching this. So as I'm saying that, immediately I'm hearing some retard say, you raped me. A child, about the same age, even maybe younger than me, acting like she's getting raped. This is the reality. Obviously, I know what's going to happen to this retard as a human being. I could have been telling the story, hey, when I was a kid, I was pretending to get raped. But this is what I'd rather go through and say than live like this trash. And they say there's going to be hard trials. Like, I can't wait to see you. Because I know this trash is done. It's doomed. There's no way you can bounce back from what they do. you don't move on and through these things. This thing is over for her. She doesn't even understand it yet. She'll see when it comes. But to all my talking, just stay strong and have no shame with the reality of what happened. Not the way they try to falsify memories, create memories in this narrative way. So today when I'm seeing little boys, I saw a little boy with no shirt that started stimulating me. I was like, so this kid, this baby, like here, that you see in blur here. You see me holding a child. That's me. Little boy. And like, no, but it's not a little black boy. So again, you just stay strong and see this life where they are. So, what you're seeing here, because I was prepping this video, they stimulated me immediately. Do you see that woman, the back of her? Obviously, they forced me to get sexual stimulation now, but it's okay because truly it's a woman. But immediately, I heard the next door neighbor. I couldn't wait to see her. I think they think that I'm gonna let them live their fantasy. It's gonna be a problem because I know that what you're seeing here is a man who's gonna have his child pretending getting raped by me. And then I wish I could have captured the woman that was making noise campaign, because you should not the way this woman looks is just disgusting. I think I was like, I need to catch her doing her noise campaign, because she wanted to make me feel nervous, instead of the reality of, like, imagine me as a teenager seeing that this woman obviously is stimulating me. What happened to the kid? Unfortunately, I was in this movie that's fictional, like this is not a real thing. It was not something I cared too much about. Well, I was more concerned of how this woman looked, and wishing that would happen to me. Right? And this trash may try to make noise campaigns. It's like, obviously, you're just trying to recreate reality while you in real life, in real time, having children pretending they get raped by me. And what you're trying to use is me as a teenager looking at that, being interested in this woman and being turned on by this woman, being sexual in whatever ways. Even though if she was being abusive in this thing, it's like a movie. But looking at her and the way her figure, not wearing pants, and just like, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish it was me. Yes, that's what teenage kids think about. Yes, that's what some immature boys think. They were trying to make me have the perception toward the boy. It's like, this is the boy that turned, not this woman here with no pants on. It's like, no, it's matched because you feel the stimulation now. It's like, you're forcing me to have sexual stimulation to this woman. You can make me have that toward anybody. And yes, when I was a kid, I was looking at that. I was like, okay, I got turned on, because I get turned on toward women. Today they make me have that toward these babies, these little girls, and it's like, now match that. Now you're falsifying that. When I was a kid, I was not looking at these little girls like, oh, stimulation. They're nasty trash. We're creating reality and then wanting to let them live the fantasy. This shit walking with her flip-flop. I wish I could have captured this nasty shit, because actually she reminds me of this kind of trash that you're seeing here, like in this movie, that kind of character. Nasty, and it was flip like clack. It's like trash. What kind of woman will have kids pretending they get raped? This is fictional. She's not a real. This is acting. You are literally in real life having children. That's abuse in different fashion. But I don't care about this retard of children. Let them be thrown in this nastiness. And she walks like clack. I'm like, ugh. She even the way she walks sounds disgusting. Well, me as a teenager looking at that, being, of course, like, look at me, like, she's half naked. I'm like, I'm going to think like, yo, I wish it was me. I want to be with this woman. It's just kind of, she's not bad looking at all. Making me think of, like, the woman my friend was holding. It's nasty. To imagine them just redirecting that to this child. They have no shame, because they have compromised their kids in these things. And today when they force me to have sexual stimulation toward children, they're like, no, this is a match. No, you're manipulating my brain. And then you want to pay me as a pedophile because you work for pedophiles. And you have sold this fucking nasty shit that keep calling, saying that I raped them. These kids are fucked in life, and they know that. Target individuals, stay strong. I will put the reality in the face. What you're seeing here is a blurred picture of a man here who I think is going to have his own relative children act like they're being raped. This shit have the audacity to walk away like they are trash. It's so funny how they call me trash. There's nobody with self-respect who will have their own kids or have kids pretending they get raped and then call others trash. So if I'm trash, what are you? Selling your kids and then try to use this woman and try to create this false reality. You gotta see them. I wish they can be heard. Listen. This is a noise campaign to do. That's human shit. That's what human shit do. Trash. trash. Who sold their own fucking kids and now doing these things with trash. Low life. I hope they continue to make this human shit. Who sold their own kids. It's like, you trap, trash. You sold your retards. You didn't trap anything. You have your children pretending you're, and you work for pedophiles while trying to put this thing together. I swear to God, for me, when I see them, I know I'm going to be aggressive. This shit deserves to die. They have sold their own kids and then try to falsify reality. And then try to be like, no, but you felt sexual stimulation when you saw this woman. Yes, what does it mean? You think the boy, that's what they did to me? No. It's like, I would imagine if that woman was doing that to me, it turned me on. That me, when I'm like, this happened to me with this woman looking like, oh, what? What does it mean? Trash. And it's me when I'm a freaking teenager. And today they stimulate me toward that. So I don't care. They do that to the baby. So toward this woman, it doesn't faze me. But this trash, literally throw trash. This is the pure definition of trash. They do trashy things while throwing trash. It's amazing. Target visuals stay strong and hear these things for what it is. Next door neighbors, low lives, are capable of selling their kids and then act this way and call you the trash. They always, everybody's thanking these people to do what they're doing, but they will never have their kids do that. Only the trash, which they said is daring. Yeah, keep being a daring person, throwing your kids into this. Their dares is to be able to sell and have their kids pretend they get raped. And then they move on. Huh? This is the low life trash. I'd rather get fisted, tortured in every way than let them live their fantasy. To my target visuals, stay strong. And just to wrap up everything here, please end up listening to the reality of things. I love to put that in their faces. Because they're like, nah, you're a real pedo, no trash. You are here trying to paint this narrative in these ways. Instead of just obviously seeing that actually things might look the opposite. Apparently, looks like since my childhood, I might have had an obsession with older women. You're just trying to flip it around. Matter of fact, right now, what they're doing, they bring up this worst hip-hop. What happened is, well, I'm trying to express myself. It's going to be hard because they're going to try to make it difficult for me to interact, to speak. Basically, what happened is, it was a worst hip-hop where this kid was like a freaking young kid, like maybe 3-year-old, and he was like humping everything, and the older girls, I think were like the older sisters, whatever they are, like were laughing. He was humping them, and I remember watching that laughing. What they've done is they changed the memory and try to create a stimulation which they try to say, no, but you were stimulated by the girls when they were the older sisters, and like the stories they created, and they try to take this here. It's like, that's an example. Look, it's like trash. It's like, no, that's pedo. And they use these voices. When I'm hearing them interacting, and they want to sell this thing, there's a woman that was making noise campaign. To try to make me accepting of that, because I was watching the scene again where this woman with no pants on, half naked, goes and slap it, and I'm like, can you imagine me? I'm a teenager. I see that. I'm not going to look at this woman as like, hey. To try to redirect that to, you think this little kid over there is what made me? If anything, I was like, I want to be this kid. As they try to manipulate that, it's like, no, that's bad. It was like, these people have sold their own kids to pretend to get raped. That's how compromised they are. We're talking about a lifetime destroyed, a life that they've destroyed of their own blood to partake in this fashion. They tell me, no, I implanted drugs. I did that because of trash. You did that because you're trash. You're looking at how to paint me in these pedophilia ways, and you're kind of reconstructing it and kind of blocking out the obvious. Like, why would I be a teenager looking at this woman and be interested in this woman and want to be in the place of this child when I'm a child myself? Well, an older child, like I was like late teen. And why does it bring me back to me as a teenager with an older woman? While your trash house is out here talking about you dare to have your child pretending to get raped. It's so nasty. Now listen to the entities running this program. Okay, this woman, this is all fictional. This perps are working for governmental entities. They download child porn by the thousand. And they're trying to make me think of a movie that came out in 2002. I probably watched in 2004. I'm a teenager. And then maybe I saw it again when I'm like a young adult. Like maybe 20 years old, 19 years old. With the sensibility of a freaking 19, 20 years old. Thinking about the woman instead of the obviously what this woman's doing is wrong, but man, look at this woman's behind. Okay, it's kind of she's kind of and try to make nose campaign because they are low life and that's paid though. No, you know what's paid though? Is to have children pretending to get raped. You nasty low life. And because today they force me to get sexual stimulation toward children, they try to convince me this low life using kids to pretend to get raped while working for pedophiles. For me, I look at them for the pedophiles that they are. That's why they are here trying to find ways to make me accept of this. It's like, no, there is something. It's like, yes, you see me as a child already looking at this woman in a sexual way. Wishing that I was the child there. And they use these retards who try to rewiring it in different ways. Child retards, like, that's pedo. Using this V2K technology. That's how this interaction. And the thing with them, they think if we're going to act a certain way, he's going to go with it. I was like, no, trash. Listen to the noise campaign they were making. I wish I could have filmed them. I wish you could have seen them in action. This is the trash like that's bad though. They're human shit that have sacrificed their own kids. Target individuals stay strong. I'd rather die in hell than let them live the fantasy.
Bill that would help the DoD stop the use of its network to, quote, possess, procure, or produce child pornography. Joining us to discuss this, investigative journalist Ben Swan. So Ben, the Pentagon already takes measures to limit worker access to stuff like porn by rolling out what they call the Personal Electronic Device PED policy. Where workers have to drop off their phones and lockers before entering their offices. All their online searches are accessible by security if or when needed. Their Wi-Fi access is monitored in digital security sweeps. So how is this happening?
Well, it's happening because even though there is a certain amount of limitation on access, those who are working in the Department of Defense, clearly it appears to be thousands of individuals in the Department of Defense are finding ways around this, specifically by using the Department of Defense IP addresses and also apparently peer-to-peer sharing within the department's network. So this study that was done on this issue, and it is pretty horrifying, Manila, to consider this, it shows that the Department of Defense ranked 19th out of almost 3,000 networks in terms of peer-to-peer sharing of child pornography. That is absolutely incredible. This bill attempts to essentially say, look, we're not doing enough to stop it from coming in, but we're also not doing enough in the Department of Defense to go after those individuals who are being recognized as the ones who are perpetrating this.
So Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger is the co-author to this bill. She said this, quote, the notion that the Department of Defense's network and Pentagon-issued computers may be used to view, create, or circulate such horrifying images is a shameful disgrace and one we must fight head-on. Now, the fact that the Pentagon workers, be they civil or military or otherwise, already submit to a gauntlet of daily scrutiny just going in and out of work, is it fair then to the tens of thousands who are completely innocent to further allow that much more government intrusion into their, their digital devices or the things that they're dealing with on their computers?